Welcome to Audio Path, where we take a real look at making a living in music.
Ever wonder what it's like to make a living in music outside of the big industry hubs? We're here to pull back the curtain with raw, unfiltered conversations about the ups, downs, and everything in between.
Join us, John Kimbrough,
And Trent Harrison,
as we share real-world insights, experiences, and stories from behind the scenes in the music industry. Whether you're an artist, audio nerd, or you just love music, we've got something for you.
this is Audio Path, where the hustle is real and the passion runs deep.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Audio Path podcast.
Yeah.
I'm John. This is Trent.
Hey.
We are Audio Path.
Mm-hmm.
Really glad you all have decided to join us on this episode. We've got a good one in store, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little nitty gritty. Trent, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so we're going to kind of get into some of the background business administrative stuff of the music industry. It's very, very important. We're going to talk about copyright and royalties and what was
Some
the other-
contracts.
Some contracts, that's
Mhm,
right. So
mhm.
copyright, royalties, and contracts. A lot of that intermingles with each other, and so we're gonna try to go through some of that stuff. If this episode seems like kind of boring desk work, well, it is, but
But it's very important,
it's
though.
important
Yeah.
if you are trying to go down a path to create a career in the music industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also want to say, if any of these topics give you a little bit of anxiety,
Yeah.
part of our goal for this episode is to help you not have anxiety
Yeah.
about these topics.
Yeah. That's a big part of our whole podcast.
It really
is to try to help anyone who's just getting started in this or has aspirations to get started or be in some sort of audio music industry related, career.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to do here. Why
Yeah.
don't we dive in? Which one do you want to talk about first?
I think it would probably be best to talk about copyright first.
Okay.
Because that could be the first thing that you may do or encounter
Yep.
in your journey there.
Yep.
So in order to talk about that, let's set up a little visual here. So you've written a song, whether it's solo or with a band. And you've got it's fully flushed out. Let's say that this song has been written, you've been performing it live for 6 months or so. It's probably dialed in, you're not going to make any more changes. And then you go into the studio and you record the song and you go through the whole process. It's done, it's mixed, it's mastered. You get the files back from the mastering engineer and they are your masters, right? This is the most likely going to be a waveform file, and you probably will get multiple versions depending on what you're going to do with it. But you've got the final files already, and the song's not going to change. So at this point, you are thinking about, okay, we got to distribute the song, and we want to push it out there to the streaming services, or maybe make some CDs, maybe get some vinyl. Is there anything else that we need to do, administratively? You might say to yourself, or as a lot of people do, they maybe don't even think about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, there is a good thing to do. And there's a lot of, that thing is copyright. There's a lot of misinformation or myths, I guess, kind of around copyright that I'm hoping that through our conversation today, we can kind of debunk some of that and maybe just make it a little more streamlined and easier to understand.
Yeah.
So you go through that process. What are you doing? So you need to, you're trying to copyright your music. Why are you doing that? All right. So in order for to basically prove ownership of your music that you have recorded, you have to register it with the U.S. We're talking about U.S. I mean, we don't know other laws of other countries, but I'm assuming it's something kind of similar. But in the U.S., you would go to copyright.gov, and this can be done by paper. And of course, started that way, but now it is all mostly online registration. You can save some money by just doing it online. Don't see why you wouldn't. But you go to the copyright registration for the U.S. Copyright Office, and there are multiple different sections, and you're going to find the registration section, and we're going to fill out. It's basically just filling out forms. And so, but what you're going to need to get to that, like what should you expect to submit? Well, they're going to want to know who you are. Of course, you're going to have to, someone's going to have to take the lead. If this is a band situation, who's submitting the copyright, the name of the band, the name of. Now, you can do it in a couple different ways. You can do individual songs. You can also do a whole body of work, an album. The cost difference, there used to be that it was around $30 a song per song. And so that started to add up a little bit, and now they are, well, few years back, they changed it to a similar pricing or not much more for an entire collection of work. So I think it was up to 20 songs. And so a whole album could be submitted for not much more than what they were charging for a single song. So that was great. That helped out a lot. And so now I want to say it's anywhere from, like, depending on the some of the other factors of like how many people are involved and number of songs, because the more paperwork, I think it does get a little more expensive. But it's anywhere from $65 to like $125 for a collection of work. And so you're going to need to submit all that information, who wrote the song, if you're doing it under the band, as the band owns the song collectively, or if you have an individual songwriter in the band who wants to be named as the songwriter and maintain rights as a songwriter. And we're going to get into like what are the differences between all that when we start talking about the royalties a little bit. And then any of the other information you're going to need, it would be helpful to have the lyrics to the song typed up, be able to submit on a PDF. The chord progression of the song, I know used to be important. I'm not sure if you have to have that now, but of course you're going to have the master recording. The lyrics and the master recording are, I think, the two primary things.
Yeah.
And so then from there, it is like, I want to say it's about a 6-month process. But once you start the submission, you can basically consider it done. Because what happens is it may take them 6 months for the government to catch up and, get you finalized, but no one else is going to be able to copyright it any faster than that. Right. So as soon as it's started, it's basically done. And then that basically, prints in stone that you are the owner of that music. Right.
Undisputable,
exactly. So no one can copy it to try to make any money off of it, steal it in any sort of way. But let's take a small bit of time here and talk about some myths and things. So you may have heard of the poor man's copyright, right? Which is basically like what they used to do. They would burn a copy of a CD or even prior a cassette or something like that, and then mail it to themselves. And so what that would show was that there's a time stamp and date on the postage.
Right.
And so they figured, well, that's good enough to prove, because essentially that's kind of what copyright is. It's basically just proving when it was done and who owned it.
Right.
So the postage would do that. But, I mean, that could be faked, right? So, yes, that does have some sort of weight, I guess, but in court, I don't think that would completely hold up, because that could easily be faked.
Yeah.
Right?
And we're not lawyers. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know completely.
But,
we don't know. So just putting that out there. But, yeah. So that was something that is talked about. But then in that regard, I get this question a lot in the studio. Do I even need to bother copywriting my music? Like, what's, it's not free. It takes time. Like, is it even worth it? I usually tell them yes, because you never know what might happen. Someone might hear your song later on down the line and really want to cover it or, play it. And if you don't have it copywritten, then what's stopping them from just taking it and doing it themselves and not paying you anything for doing that for your hard work?
Right.
So I would say yes, go for it. It's really not that hard. Just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of money. But if you're smart about it and you try to do it on an album by album basis, then it's really not going to cost you that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to get done. It just is.
Yeah, I think so. And so where does that take us, you think, John?
Well, here's a question.
Okay.
How do you know who is a songwriter? How do you know who owns the song? Where does that bring us?
Good
well,
question.
Contracts.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some contracts. First of all, what does a contract do? Okay. A contract is basically an agreement that is understood by both parties, or all, if it's more than two, by all parties. Okay. That's really all that a contract is. It's a written down understanding and agreement of who owns what, and sometimes even more than that. Sometimes even like who's going to do what as part of a process. Okay. Contracts can be a little bit of a scary word. I understand that. If you're new, the last thing that you want to do with somebody you've never met before is be like, hey, here's a contract.
Sign this.
Sign your life away,
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
And I think there are reasons for that. I think we've all heard horror stories of people kind of getting screwed over by a contract in the music world.
Yeah, it used to run rampant in the, I say the early days, but I mean, gosh.
I know, right? Yeah.
It's been going almost continuously since there's been record labels.
Yeah, you hear about record labels, and the biggest one that I think people know about is like Taylor Swift.
Yep, that's a big one.
Her her contract was not great, and there's, I don't need to tell the story. I'm sure most of the listeners are aware of how that situation happened. But from your side of things, though, as an engineer, or whether you're a producer, mix engineer, mastering engineer, whatever it may be, even as a session player, like contracts can help you because they are clear communication. And that's really all you're trying to do with a contract. You're just trying to clearly communicate expectations. Because if you try to do that later, it can get really muddy and really confusing.
Exactly.
If you get to the place where you're going to copyright something, or not even copyright, we haven't talked about like royalty distribution yet, but if you get to a place where you're trying to distribute and you haven't figured out your splits with your bandmates, like who owns what percentage of the song, all of a sudden you have to put something down on a piece of paper saying, hey, Mike owns 15% of this song, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And if you haven't talked about it up until that point, it can get really dicey. Really messy. Because all of a sudden, Mike is like, wait, I wrote like 50% of this song.
Yeah, this is mostly my song. So
right?
I'm taking most of the money for this song.
That's right. Then you got the other guy who's like, no, I wrote most of the song.
You'd be surprised, or you wouldn't, whenever money gets involved, how people's sentiments change. Big time. When the song was not doing anything, they didn't even think about it, nor did they care. But whenever money's on the line, they have an opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They do. So how do you avoid that? Well, talk about it up front.
Yep.
Okay. This is, writing a contract out is actually very simple. You just need something in writing, and you need something that says, yeah, all of us agree to this.
Right.
Okay. It doesn't have to be like a big, complicated legal thing. It's just so that you all, when you get to the point where you have to like claim things, it's all out there already, and everybody knows like who gets what already.
Exactly.
Okay. That's the whole point of it. So don't let it scare you. Hopefully you're making music with people that you trust.
Yeah.
And you can sit down with them and say, hey, I would like to do just a real quick kind of contractual thing here. We can write it together, or I can write it and send it to you, and we can make adjustments or whatever. But when you do that, you get it out of the way. It actually frees you up to engage in the creative process a bit more. Because you're not thinking about it, you're not having to worry about it. You know what your expectation is, what you're supposed to bring to the table, and you know what your bandmates or the other people involved in the project are going to bring to the table.
Right, exactly.
I have a quick story I want to share where I didn't do a contract one time.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Trent knows this story.
I do. It's good.
And I have done a contract ever since. So without giving names away or anything like that, I'll keep this brief. I was involved in a project, a local project here in Wilmington, a while ago. I guess it was 5 or 6 years ago now, or something like that. And so it was this group of people who were like worship leaders in their various churches, and they wanted to get together and they wanted to, start writing music together. And somewhere along the way, like they did one song, and they didn't have a producer for it. They got together at a local studio and just kind of like made it happen. The finished product wasn't I would say it wasn't ideal, and they knew that, and so they wanted to kind of step up to the next level. So they got me involved with it. This was at the time when I was still young as a studio engineer. I mean, this was right there during that COVID time where I was, as we've already talked about on previous episodes, like really trying to hone that craft. So they approached me, and they had heard some of the stuff that I'd put out, and they were like, hey, we want you to like be our like producer type person on this and whatever. And I was like, okay, sure. And I was young in it. So I was like, like they're talking like I'm probably going to get paid or whatever as part of this, but it was never written anywhere.
Yeah.
So I put in a ton of work, tracked the whole thing, scheduled out session musicians, all of it, like engineered at the small studio we were recording at, all of it. I mean, from recording to producing to editing to mixing to mastering to distribution. I mean, 100%, all of it. Played a ton of the tracks too. And, and it went out, and the track started getting some heat. I mean, we had like 12,000 listens on it or something like that, which, I mean, for like a brand new group, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a really good start.
Yeah. And there's more to the story there, but basically the group, I didn't get paid. The group did wind up receiving money. Someone in the group took all the money, and the group disappeared.
Yep.
Like songs aren't even distributed anymore.
Yeah.
And anyway, it was one of those things where it's like, I truly don't hold a grudge against any of those people. If you're one of those people and you're listening, like I truly don't. But it taught me one thing. It taught me, I really need to just be clear about expectations on the front end of like what this is and what I'm supposed to be doing and what you're supposed to be doing.
It's good to lay all that stuff out on the front side. Contracts help you do that.
They do.
They do.
So before we move on from that, hopefully you're understanding as a listener like why they're really important. Here's another side of it that I just want to kind of give you a brief template. Okay, and this is not legal advice. Again, we are not lawyers here, but here's how I typically do it just from my personal standpoint of making a contract. Let me just talk about if I'm going to be producing for somebody. If I'm going to be producing a song for you, I'm going to have a contract that says, hey, this is an agreement that we have for me to produce this song for you. Here's what that means. It means I'm going to, be a part of the arrangement process. I'm going to be selecting instrumentalists. If I'm going to be hiring session musicians, that's in there. I mean, just literally put in the document what you are going to be doing. So that it's very clear that if something comes up that's not your job, you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Then put, like what amount is to be paid, when it is to be paid. If you want to do like a payment plan with somebody, that's totally up to you. Just put it all in there. Be like, all right, half is due at this time. The other half is due at this other time or whatever. And then in there, talk about your splits. As a producer, you typically receive a producer split. So like a smaller percentage of the song is yours, right? And that can vary pretty widely. But let's say, hey, like I want 5 producer points for this song for producing it for you. That means 5% of the song.
Right.
So, that should be in there. Some of this you're going to have to explain maybe to your artist.
Yeah.
If they've never encountered this before, you have to walk them through
what that means,
what this actually is. And, sound exchange, which we're going to cover in just a little bit here. You need to include in there like Do you own a right to any of the actual recording, not just the song?
Yeah.
You know, some producers do that. Some producers don't. It just kind of depends,
Yep.
you know. Do some research. I mean, figure out what is appropriate for you to do as the producer.
Right.
Mix and mastering engineer, it's not really an option for you.
Yeah, you usually don't get anything.
Yep.
Wah, wah,
Womp,
wah.
womp, womp. You are a paid service.
Yeah.
Womp, womp, womp.
So the difference being there is you're being, like John said, it's a paid service, meaning that they're paying you a flat amount and that releases you from any future royalty rights,
Right.
basically. If
Correct.
you accept that money, then you are not entitled to anything in the future.
Right.
Now, a contract in place is still not a bad idea, but it can easily be proven that you don't have any right to it if you've accepted it, right? So, like as you know, John's going through all this, and we're going to come back to let him finish that. But like I historically have not done contracts with a lot of my artists because of that very reason. I'm mostly the service provider in the situation. Occasionally, I take on a little bit of a producer role, but it is rare that I am like wearing the full-on hat of that. Like maybe I'm just dabbling a little bit in it, and I usually don't worry too much about that.
Yeah.
So they pay me a flat amount, or it's based on time, but at the end or beginning, middle, and end, then once that's all paid up, they have full rights to the music. And they have full rights to the files technically too. And that's, well, I want to say it's understood. It may not be if they're just getting started. Sure. And we would talk, if they ever have a question, we would talk about that.
Yeah.
And I have before. But anyway, continue on, John.
Yeah, no. I mean, that pretty much sums it up. I will say when I mix or master, I also contract those.
Yeah.
Just so it's crystal clear, like, hey, who owns what at the end of this process? You own the files.
Yeah.
They are yours. I typically put in there, I retain copies of the files.
Yeah. Never a bad idea.
Never a bad idea. Just because, I mean, it's happened to me even last week. Somebody came to me and was like, hey, that song that we recorded, I lost the original.
They will lose it.
They will lose it.
Yep.
And so, it's good to have that written in there just so everyone's clear on it. But also, I want a crystal clear understanding of when I'm going to get paid for the service that I'm providing.
Yeah.
So even if there's not a splits situation going on in there,
you're still working for them and you're going to get paid the flat part. So when is that going to happen?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, typically for me, it's something like, upon receipt of your finished track, I am due X amount of money.
Yeah.
Like that's the exchange that is,
yeah, exactly.
It is upon receipt. So,
exactly.
Since that one time that I had an issue, I've not had an issue, but I truly believe some of that is because I put it all out there at the very beginning.
Yeah, the contracts have helped you with that for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, I will say the other side of the contract is like with your bandmates. That can be an awkward conversation to have.
That's a tough one.
That's tough, I understand. But if you get it clean and clear from the get-go,
yeah,
man, can that make your life easier later?
Absolutely. It's not a bad idea, especially when you get to the point that the band is going well and everyone seems to be pretty committed. Like this is not something you're going to do after you've had a couple of rehearsals and maybe one gig, right? Yeah. Like let's be real about it. Like once you've kind of established yourself, the band is going well, everyone seems to be committed, and they're at the point to where you're making enough money from the gigs and the merch that you are considering starting a business for the band. Perfect time to institute that between band members. Maybe even better before that if you're making decent money. But surely there's been talks about we have a band account and this is how it goes, or everyone just gets paid out every time and, there is no band account. That also happens. It depends on, what position you're in, but not a bad thing to have in place, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to take 1 second to highlight the other side of the no contract pathway. So, like I was saying earlier, I have historically not done very many contracts. I have had a few that I've come across and they have worked out fine. But I've had many projects that have had no contracts. And you might say, well, Trent, you must have been getting screwed over some of these things because you didn't have a contract in place. Well, not necessarily. And I'll tell you why. Well, for one, I feel like I've been fortunate to work with good people that just, are not going to do that to me, which is great. I mean, that's what you want, and you got to be a good judge of character before you get into a working relationship with somebody. So that should be your first filter right there is does this person seem like they're going to be honest and be, hold up their end of the deal, right? Now, assuming that's true, then you're probably okay. But I have metrics or systems in place by the way that I operate that allows me a little bit of a blanket or a cushion safety to not get screwed over, basically. So what is that? Well, basically there's different payment like points that so all right, let me just break it back down to the very beginning. So the first one, okay, we're everything's looking like it's going to work out. They've, inquired, the songs, the demos sound good. I'm into it, they're into it. They want to book some time. And we find the dates. The first thing is I take a deposit. Okay. So before we've done any, like the only work that has been done is just been trying to figure out what work we're actually really going to do.
Yeah.
So if it falls through at that point, I may have only lost an hour of like coordinating logistics with this person, maybe less. So it wouldn't be a big deal, but I take a deposit. So if for some reason the deposit scares them away, maybe I've lost that. Most of the time it doesn't. It's fine. It goes towards the overall cost of the project anyway. So it's not like an additional cost or anything like that. So it's no problem. As soon as they submit that deposit, what that does is I secure the dates that we've talked about based on that. So it varies depending on how much time they want to book, what the deposit amount is. But I basically make it enough that if they bail on me, I have a decent amount, like keeping that deposit is not a total loss of the day, and I can hopefully pivot. I may not be able to shift completely into making the same amount that I would have made if the project would have went through, but I can hopefully shift quick enough to make up the time and not be out, a week's worth of work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the deposit gives me a little bit of cushion to try to make up that time. And even more importantly, it shows me that they're serious and committed. And so that's one kind of like step or system I have in place that works really well to keep people honest and in on it, right?
For sure.
And so from there, we'll have our tracking days, and I do all of the recording process, and then I ask for payment for the time that we've spent during the recording process because it's an hourly situation or a day rate situation. And so at the end of the recording process, I ask for payment. And so there again, it's a good situation to be in because it's like I have something they want, the recordings. They have something I want to be paid for the recordings. So I think I've only been screwed over at that point one time in 16 years.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So it retains a little bit of leverage, right? And so at that point, if things were going south, then we would probably have a different conversation and we'd figure out how to get out of it and go our separate ways. But things are going well, they're fine, they pay for that, and then from there, we're totally square. And so then the clock restarts, and I do if I'm the one doing the mixing, I do the mixing, in which case I do put a little, same thing. I put the time in on the front end, do all the mixing work, and then I ask to be paid at the end of that.
Mm.
And it's like, okay, well, how does that go? What keeps me from, them just running off with it? Well, fortunately, I use this platform called FilePass.
Mm-hmm.
And shout out to FilePass. You guys are doing it right.
You really are.
Yep. And it allows you to send large file format with like a lossless quality, so you don't lose quality. And you can allow it to be downloadable or not downloadable. You can put a paywall on it so that they have to pay for it before they can download it. So what it does is it gives you the ability to let them listen to it and give you feedback on your mixes, but they don't actually have it.
Right.
You can take it away at any time. If something were to go oddly wrong, then you're protected. And I guess you could say at this point, if for some reason you just never heard from them again, then yeah, I would be out that time that I spent on the mixes. But that's so far never happened, thankfully, because think about it like this. They've put so much time into it and they've already paid for the recordings at that point. Why would they run off at that point? Doesn't make sense. So it's just another system that keeps me protected in this situation while they're still happy with what's going on, because it doesn't slow the process down or anything. There's no real contract, but I still have protection. They're fine. Everything goes on. And as soon as they pay for the mix or master, whichever one is the ending process, then I just allow them to download it. They have everything. If there's more files I need to send, I send it to them and everybody's happy.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my process for navigating the recording studio business without contracts.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can be done. I think that to John's point, it wouldn't hurt at all to introduce a contract, but it can be a little intimidating thing.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we should take a tiny little moment to talk about that. I think that's one of the reasons why I never started out with them, was because I didn't want to hit an artist with a contract right out the gate. That's like, it just seemed so unartistic and uncreative. It seemed like the opposite of the business. And I think that's a big reason why there is a stigma behind them in this industry, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not very common.
Let me talk to that a little bit, because I have an approach that I take that I have found kind of disarms some of that.
Cool.
So the last thing I would ever do is just hit somebody with a contract immediately.
Right out the gate, yeah.
Yep. I always approach things, especially with a new artist, with a conversation first. Mm-hmm. So I always talk through, and I'm really, in that conversation, I'm trying to do exactly one thing, and I'm trying to hear their creativity. Mm-hmm. I want to know what they're jazzed about, what they're trying to get out of this, what their project is already looking like. I mean, we're having a creative moment, a creative conversation together. That's always my goal when I'm talking with a new person that I've never worked with before. Or even if I'm talking with somebody who I haven't worked with in a while, just like I want the art, I want the creativity to be the core of that conversation, no matter what. And really of just about anything that we do. Yeah. Once that is good and we get to a place where they ask me like, okay, so like what are your rates or whatever, then I tell them. So I just verbally tell them like, here's what it would look like for you to work with me. If you're interested in that and that feels good to you, then the next step in the process is really, I'll send you just a brief contract. And I would love to, I tell them this every time, I would love to just talk through what it means with you. And I directly address, like, I recognize that there's a history of contracts kind of screwing people in the music industry. And that is not what I want to do. Mm-hmm. I want us to be really clear on what we've already talked about and just make sure that we are, going to move forward into actually creating together in a safe environment where we both can feel totally free.
That's really good, because, the farther you get along in your journey here or in your career, if you do institute contracts early on, at a certain point, they will probably become commonplace to you, but the person you're working with might not be that way.
Not at all. Yeah. Not at all. Mm-hmm. And I've found that for artists, that can be a really educational moment. Yeah. Because, as I'm going through a contract, they're like, so what is what is sound exchange?
Right.
Like, what is a BMI? Like,
Yeah.
what does this even mean?
Totally.
And if I can help explain to them, like, hey, this is what this means, and it's a first conversation about the distribution process, for a lot of people who have never even considered that or thought about it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I work with artists that it's a hobby project for them. They're like, hey, I've written these songs, and like I just want to kind of record them for posterity.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's super cool.
That's cool.
But it's really easy to distribute. Have you thought about doing that? And they're like, no, I thought I had to like sign a record label. And I'm like, no, you don't have to sign with a record label.
No.
You
Yeah.
sure don't.
No.
So, anyway,
Yeah.
so that's how I approach it. You've at this point, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you're probably picking up on this. Like, be relational.
Right.
Like, we cannot say that enough. It's
Right.
just be relational with other human beings.
Yeah. You should be able to have these conversations and no one feel like they're being, taken advantage of or attacked or trying to be put into a bad situation.
Yeah.
And if they do, then hopefully you can explain it to the point that they don't.
Right. Right.
And if they do get weirded out, then maybe it just wasn't the right fit.
Right.
And that's
that's okay too.
That happens sometimes.
It does.
It
does.
And I've been put in those type of situations a couple of times. I mean, sometimes when it gets to the rates and the budget and all that, we just don't see eye to eye and we go our separate ways.
Yeah.
And no harm, no foul.
Totally.
That totally happens. But
Yeah.
as long as you're up front, then you won't lose too much time and no one will really get hurt and it'll be just fine.
Yep.
Yep.
Completely.
Yeah.
Stay relational.
That's right.
Stay
That's
relational.
right.
So anyway, okay. So contracts. Hopefully that makes some sense.
Yep. Copyright and contracts.
So let's talk royalties.
Yeah.
A little bit. Okay.
This is the interesting
part.
one. Yeah.
So we've kind of tapped on this a little bit when we were talking about contracts, but royalties are really these days how you're going to get paid for your actual music.
For your recordings.
Yeah. That's right. So Trent, why don't you kind of take us into royalties a little bit and just kind of your experience with them and distribution, which we've covered a little bit.
Yep. So we've covered distribution. So we'll assume that you've already copywritten your music and you're ready to distribute it or distribute it out into the world. Let's say you've already done that. Let's say you went with CD Baby and you've already put it out there. Your album is just dropped 2 days ago on CD Baby. What can you expect after that?
Right.
Okay. So let's talk about a couple different scenarios after this has happened. The CD's out there or the streaming is out there. What's going to happen? So a fan, could maybe either through your website or maybe through your social media accounts, they could make it to CD Baby and they could buy your album outright, download it to their computer, and they would own those copies and they could do whatever they want with them, right? And so then at that point, CD Baby is starting to collect a account for you. And from my experience, from what I remember, you can set a threshold. Like, you don't need them to send you $9.99, right? That's not gonna, go too far. But once it hits, like, I don't know, maybe you want $50, like, and then once your account reaches that amount, they can cut you a check or do direct deposit, and the money, your cut of the money, will go into your account from there. That's one route. The other route is the streaming services.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already covered this, a good bit, that you're not looking at a lot here.
No, you're just not.
We're just being real with you. The best thing a fan can do for you with your music is to buy a CD of it.
Yep.
Or a vinyl.
Yep.
Some sort, or download.
Mm-hmm.
All of those. If they just go the streaming route, which happens far more often than the others, then you're looking at like 0.003 to 0.005 of a dollar for your streams. And if you don't break above 1,000 streams, you get nothing.
Yep.
Which is pretty bad.
That is pretty bad.
And the calculation is based on a percentage of the whole pie, we're just going to use Spotify for this example.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, we're talking about Spotify.
Talking about you, Spotify.
Yeah, come on, man. Get it together.
Seriously.
The artists are fighting and competing for the same pie. That means that you're out there trying to win portions of money against Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran, Jay-Z, all of the top artists, right? The fun statistic, the top 1% of all artists on Spotify get 90% of all the money that's made.
Mm-hmm.
So think about that.
There's a not so fun fact for you.
Yeah, that one's not great.
No.
So 99% of us are only still competing for the last 10%.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's like really bad.
To put it in dollar terms, it takes, let's say you get 90,000 streams. At that rate, it's going to equate to $270 or something like that, less than $300.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not talking about a lot of money from your streaming royalties.
Right.
But it could be something. So
it's better than nothing, I guess.
It's better than nothing, I guess, for sure. The thing about it, I don't want to spend too much time on streaming, but it is a good way to get, some listeners to get out there. So anyway, we'll move past that. So tell us about other royalty options, John.
Yeah.
Tell me
For
about
sure.
that.
So once your song is out there, so Trent was talking about how, and we're using CD Baby as an example here. I think they're one of the better ones.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, because things are constantly moving and shaking in the industry, but as of right now, if you distribute through CD Baby, you have two payment options that you can do with them. One of them I think is like $9.99, and they literally just distribute your song and call it a day. But then there's like their full package, which is like $49.99 or something like that. And they basically will do the work of collecting information and collecting royalties for you. Okay. I always recommend that people just go the $49.99 route and just make their lives a lot simpler.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening on the back end is your distributor, CD Baby in this case, is actually like collecting that money and like recognizing, hey, this amount of streams happened on this platform, which means we received this amount of money or whatever. However, how do you actually get paid? It's through Sound Exchange.
Mm-hmm.
So Sound Exchange is in the US, you have to sign up for Sound Exchange to like become not really a member, but kind of become a member of Sound Exchange. And when you do that, then Sound Exchange basically does the work of collecting all the information from like everywhere that things have been distributed and then pays you your royalty amounts.
Yeah.
Of your sound recording.
Right.
Okay. So like, what do I mean by sound recording? Well, so let's say you write a song, you and your band or whatever. Let's just keep it simple. You, as a singer-songwriter, write a song, okay? Yes, you own that song, but then you go and record a version of that song, okay? And it's called like the song single, Then then you distribute that. You also own that sound recording. But let's say down the road you want to make another recording of that song. So this is like on an album. So this is like the song, but it's part of an album or whatever. But it's a different version of the song.
Yeah.
It's the same song, but you now have two sound recordings of the same song.
Yes. Sound
Exchange tracks royalties on the actual sound recordings of songs and pays royalty amounts for that. Okay. Now, the splits, like we were talking about earlier, the royalty splits that you negotiate, these can be different from song ownership splits.
Yes.
Okay. I've even seen producer contracts where a producer who does like a ton of the work, like maybe they record all of the music themselves or whatever, they actually have like up to 50% of that sound recording. Like I've seen those contracts before. That's a bit of a strong contract, but that's an example. But it doesn't mean they own 50% of the actual song.
No, that's right. The songwriting. So there's mechanical royalties,
right?
Songwriting royalties and performance royalties.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
So John was mostly talking about mechanical royalties at this stage, but
that's right.
Also the songwriter.
The songwriter, yes. So the songwriter owns the song, and they receive songwriting royalties. Okay, and again, like all of these splits can be and probably should be different in a lot of cases. which is why, back to my point about contracts, like you can set this all up ahead of time. So the way that the performance royalties are like captured and taken in are through pros, performing rights organizations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And there are several of these that exist. There's kind of like the big three, but we're really just going to talk about two, and we're going to just kind of like do this briefly. There's BMI and then there's ASCAP.
That's right.
And both of these really are entities that like you sign up with them, you register with them, and then they are going to do the work of like anytime someone performs your song. So like they do a cover of your song or whatever. Yeah. This can take a lot of different forms, but when someone performs your song, they technically have to report it. And then once it's reported, then you receive royalties off of the performance of that particular piece.
That's right. Yeah.
So the main thing here is just to keep in mind that that's a totally different thing.
Right.
From the other two that we've been talking about, than the songwriting royalties and the mechanical license.
Or recording.
That's right.
So synonymous. Mechanical is meaning recording.
Yes. Yeah. So it's just important to understand that there's three different versions of all of this. Right. Typically, the two that you're dealing with primarily when you're talking about like recording a song are going to be the songwriting and the recording or mechanical.
Yeah.
Those are kind of the two big ones that you've got to get covered.
For sure. Fun fact, though, on the BMI and ASCAP, like in that realm, John was talking about when other people perform your song, they're keeping track of what is happening with that, and you should be getting a cut of those performances. It also works for you performing your own song, which is a lot more common on the early stages of your career and middle stages that you will be performing your own music, right?
Right.
And so, and a lot of musicians don't know that, honestly. They may even be registered and they don't think about that, but they're leaving some money on the table, actually. Mm-hmm. So what do you do there? So, well, you basically, after, let's say you have like 3 or 4 gigs throughout a weekend, you are playing, maybe you're playing some covers, whatever. I guess you could report that as well, and then those artists would get their cut as they so deserve. But you basically submit a form on the BMI or ASCAP website with your set list and the songs that you played that you have registered with them, and they will give you your cut that you deserve for performing that music in front of an audience for their entertainment.
Yep.
Which is very cool.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a little extra bonus paycheck you can get from every gig that you play if you're playing your own music at that gig.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a lot. It doesn't, but over time it'll add up. I mean, I think I was talking to the other artists that did mostly it was like 80% original music. He threw in a couple of covers. And I think he said he got like $30-$35 for that one gig.
Sweet.
And if he did that, a couple times a week and several times a month, I mean, it starts to add up a little bit.
Yep.
It's worth doing because it doesn't take that long. It's not a lot of effort. And it's money that you technically have a right to and should be given. But if you don't submit for it, they'll never know and you just won't get it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Exactly. So
anyway, side little caveat about the performance royalties.
Yes. I mean, the reality is, guys, like to make a living in music today, you kind of just have to have all these diverse places of income.
It's tough.
But, just be smart.
Yeah.
Think like a business person and be like, I'm going to actually submit like my set list to ASCAP or BMI or whoever you decide to sign up with. I'm actually going to register and like claim my song in Sound Exchange.
Exactly.
Just do it the right way.
Yeah.
Quite simply.
Yeah.
Do it the right way. And it's not like you have to do this forever. It's kind of just like, hey, once your sound recording is out there, registered in Sound Exchange and be done.
It stays, yeah. It works, yeah.
Yeah.
So every time you make a new one, then you register that. But it's just temporary a small temporary amount of work for each of these scenarios here.
Exactly.
But it starts to add up
It does.
over time. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to throw one thing out there that was helpful for me as I was trying to learn all of this. And there's an online course, and it's called Musician of All Trades. And, like literally we're not sponsored by them or anything, but I signed up for this course. Taylor, I can't remember her last name, but she's like a professional violinist. She started this course as a musician who had to learn the business side of things. And it's literally just like her entire experience of learning like how to film herself as a musician and record herself and all this kind of stuff. Really great little course that she has there. But the biggest takeaway for me was when she talked through all of this. She was like, here's the pro that I picked and why. Here's literally me step by step of like going into Sound Exchange and signing up and like registering this song that I just recorded and released.
That could be very helpful.
So I really recommend that. Like she did a phenomenal job of like literally showing step by step how this works.
Yeah, maybe we'll put that in the comments on this episode so people can find that.
Yeah, I found it extremely helpful trying to make sense of it years ago.
Cool. Very cool.
For sure.
All right. Good deal.
Yeah. I would say just to kind of put a kind of end cap on this episode, back to where we started.
Yeah.
I just really hope that people listening will take away from this that it doesn't have to be all that complicated.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to cause you a lot of anxiety.
It doesn't.
It really doesn't. I would say find a way though. Like if you're an artist listening to this and this kind of stuff gets you down and you're like, I don't want to do any of this.
Yeah. If you've made it this far.
Like
you.
kudos.
Yeah.
Find a way to just kind of get psyched on this for like a second.
Yeah.
Just it's something new.
It is.
It's something different for you, and hopefully that can inspire you to just learn enough about it to know what you need to do to be smart in this industry with your splits and when to talk about things, when to get things clarified. And I mean, really our goal is simply that you all as listeners would get to the finish line of your song being out and you've done all this stuff correctly and you're set up and you don't have to think about anything other than, hey, my song is released.
That's right.
Like, let's go.
That's right. No matter what part you're on, whether you're a performer yourself and you're enjoying the behind the scenes of this podcast, or you're an aspiring studio engineer, or a live sound engineer, or any of the other like potential opportunities out there in the music industry, we hope that you can get through this process, even though as a studio engineer myself, I'm not doing this process for the artists. I need to know about this to be able to help them do it.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what we wanted to share, is no matter where you fall in the music industry, the royalty part, the copyright part, the contracts part is bound to come across, or on your radar at some point. And it's just good to know about.
It is.
Yeah.
And I will say too, if you're in a position to help a new artist, like say you're an engineer, a studio engineer or whatever, like if you're in a position to help a new artist understand some of this stuff, that can be a real game changer for them.
It can help them a lot.
And it can build trust, like if you understand it and you can help a new artist start to understand how this industry works on the backside of things.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're like building even more of a relationship with that person.
Absolutely.
And you can be like, and I just want to put this caveat in there too. If you don't know this stuff, don't act like you know it.
Right.
Just be like, hey, that's a great question. I don't know. Let's find out together.
Let's learn it together, or,
So
see what you can figure out.
But yeah.
I have an artist right now I think it's done some recording, but it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of getting back into it. And we are now at the end of the phase of recording mix. It's been mixed and mastered. It's ready to go. And he's talking to me about distribution. And we're going to get on a call, and I'm going to help him through that. But before I do that, I told him I have what I call the closing consultation sheet, which sets out all of the copyright and all of the royalty distribution, finer points that we basically just got done talking about. So I will send that to him so that he has that information.
Yeah.
And in fact, we might put that on on our Patreon account if you guys are interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good sheet. It's very concise, and it gives you all of the options and ways to, go about the steps after you've finished your recording.
We may even put some example contracts up there too.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up, man.
Let's do it.
Talk about what you got going on this week and
Yeah.
anything else that's on your mind.
For sure. Let's see here. Just finished filming a podcast on location, filming and recording the audio for a podcast on location here in Wilmington. And it's a podcast that is hosted by a former NBA player. He played for the Charlotte Hornets back in the day.
Nice.
And he basically just goes around and he interviews people that he's played with, different coaches that he has or has connections with or whatever, and
Cool.
just talks about basketball, man.
Very
Which
cool.
I'm not a basketball fan, but I learned a lot. I
Yeah.
was like, this is fascinating.
Yeah,
So,
I bet so.
yeah, it was kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Right on, man.
What about you?
I am let's see. I've been working this week with the Fontenelles.
Mhm.
I'm still working on their project. We've been getting together every so often, how schedules have allowed. And we're getting close to wrapping up. They've recently added a couple more songs, and we're getting close to finishing those new songs that we've added to the album.
Nice, man.
So we've got probably 3 or 4 more recording sessions coming up, I would say, and that'll probably do it for us. So,
Sweet.
yeah, it's good. It's been a big record, or will be. It's been a lot of fun. Love working with them, and excited to get that one out there for people to hear.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear it, man.
Yeah, right on, man.
Yeah, good stuff.
Cool.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us, y'all. As always, this has been Audio Path. I'm John. This is Trent. And until next time, steady the path.
Steady the path.